Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Tuesday, the 7th of September 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Now, here's what I want to say. I'm going to talk about two subjects here. First subject I'm going to talk about is about over 7 million people just right now are getting cut off of unemployment benefits in the United States. We're just coming out of a terrible time with the fourth wave of a pandemic disease that has just basically destroyed parts of the economy. Um, you know, there's an awful lot of people went out of business during this that supply employment to small family-owned businesses and stuff. Just couldn't manage to stay in business. Now, an awful lot of the larger businesses and stuff were able to weather this storm, but this storm has been lasting for years. And an awful lot of mom and pop owned businesses and stuff, they've just went under now. And no place to seek employment in those places because they're closed. You know, they say there's lots of jobs out there. I ain't buying it. I think that maybe there's a few low paying jobs, very low paying job, part time work and things like that, but it's very difficult scene out there. And now suddenly they're cutting 7.5 million people off. What's that going to do to consumption? And what's it in the United States of America? And what's that going to do to the overall GDP of the United States of America? We're looking at a big numbers decrease in the GDP going to be coming in pretty soon. We got an over leveraged, propped up stock market. We've got a certain amount of stagflation going on out there at the same time. That's inflation while the economy is stagnating. This is all a setup to disaster. The Fed has said that the inflation is transitory. No, inflation is not transitory. But at the same time, the cost of living's going up, and these people are suddenly finding themselves without work and without unemployment benefits. My personal opinion on all this is that they should have kept these programs going longer, that we're not out of the woods with any sort of recovery yet or anything like that, and to just arbitrarily cut these lifelines, I'm going to call them what they are, lifelines to America, off arbitrarily, is not the right move in this kind of a situation. We're not out of the woods yet. They should have waited until we were completely out of the woods. We still got a pandemic raging. And yet they cut unemployment benefits, which I think is the wrong move. Now, the second thing I want to talk about in this show is something new, and I'm going to coin it because it's something that I believe is new, and it hasn't quite happened yet. Earlier this summer, we had what's called a heat dome that appeared over Western Canada. And the temperatures went up incredibly high, into the 40s in the Celsius range. Why this is interesting, you guys out there, they had quite a few deaths during that heat wave. It caused thousands of people actually just drop dead. There's something interesting about all this, and I'll tell you what it is. These heat waves, the human body has a heat index. And it set it as a very specific temperature. That if you cross over that line, the human body will die. So much heat the human body can take. And it's a very fine line there. It's like 1 degree. If we're talking in Fahrenheit, 2 degrees. Maybe 2 degrees there. So you can go right up to that line. And if you step over that line, you die. Just 2 degrees hotter, Fahrenheit. Or maybe 1 degree Celsius hotter than that heat index. It's certain heat that the human body can withstand. That heat spell was taking the temperature I think the heat. I think the human body can always withstand something like 107, something like that. It's in that range or something like that. Anyway, that heat spell when in Canada, the reason why the people were starting to die, didn't kill everybody, but it killed a number of people, especially people that were anyway elderly or their body wasn't working quite right. Uh, Hundreds of people died in it. I'm going to coin a new term. I'm going to call it death dome instead of heat dome, death dome, because I believe personally we didn't used to see these heat domes approaching these temperatures. We're seeing them approach now. I believe this is an increase of an old phenomenon we've had all along that we used to call a heat wave. Yes, we used to call them. But they're actually a high pressure dome. That's why I'm going to coin them death dome. Uh, the thing is that one we had in Western Canada this year took us up to the temperature right on the edge. Didn't go over the edge, but took it right up to the edge of what people could withstand. And heaven forbid they have a power outage during one of these events and people can't run their air conditioners. Seriously, when one of these heat domes builds in over a city, if the grid went down in a whole city and they couldn't run their air conditioners, those buildings would begin to cook under the sun. But I believe that this phenomenon is going to grow, and I believe it's going to intensify. I think it's going to start to go over that threshold. One we had in Western Canada took us right up to the threshold, the heat threshold, what human body can withstand. What's to stop these heat domes from going that extra little bit further and going over that threshold by 2 or 3 degrees? I don't think there's anything stopping them. There's no law saying, hey, they can't get a little bit hotter. Just a couple degrees centigrade or maybe 5 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than what we've been having them. And wherever it would drift over would come under that oppressive heat like they're in a frying pan. Now, these heat domes tend to put extra stress on the power grid. That's what they tend to do because everybody turns their air conditioners on. And the power grid's suddenly the meters are all spinning off the hook because everybody's running air conditioning. I can see a setup for a monster-sized disaster here with heat domes that would exceed the human temperature that the body could withstand. A heat dome that would go up and maybe even touch 120 degrees, or in Celsius terms, maybe almost 50 degrees Celsius. And at the same time, we have a massive power outage caused by the heat dome. Where would the people hide? How would they escape? So you got a big city. You might have 4 or 5 million people in it. All of a sudden, boom, that sound it makes when the power goes out and the lights all go out in the whole city? Maybe 5 million people and they're under one of these heat domes. Can you see the situation that would happen? There's no place to escape it. You're building suddenly because now the power is out, your air conditioning's turned off, and suddenly inside the building starts to get stifling hot. You go outside, you're directly in the sun. You go out and try to get in your car. Well, your car would have air conditioning, but how long is it going to go before the car's empty tank? This is a serious situation that we're talking about here. And it has a potential. What I'm saying is, because these are large areas too, a heat dome can be like 1,000 miles from one side of it to the other. And of course, it would be most intense near the center of the heat dome. But they seem to be appearing now over North America in the summertime. And starting early in the summer, too. I'm frightful for what might come next year. I'm thinking there's a possibility that these heat domes could grow and grow larger in the extent and size of them and the magnitude, pushing it over the edge into a killer heat dome, a death dome. the death dome. Because, well, anyway, maybe it's something that'll never happen. Let's hope it doesn't. But the potential disaster that could be caused by something like that could be absolutely unbelievable. If you can imagine, even out in the country, people might have to slide the lid off of their well and climb down a stepladder into their well and splash themselves in the water down deep in the ground to try to stay alive. People have done things like that, like in forest fires and stuff. They've went into a lake or something, or into their swimming pool to survive. We could see situations like that happening if we get one of these super powerful heat domes. We're faced by an awful lot of situations here in this world. This world it's polluted. It's out of sync now with nature. And the people in this world now are what's happened is we've had a population explosion that's coincided with a credit binge that's lasted for like 50 years. This whole thing started kind of like with the boomer generation, and the baby boom when they came back from World War II, and they started having all those babies, now they're getting old, and so we got bad aging demographics as well. The whole situation's coming together to cause a decline in let's put it this way, a sharp decline in the population of planet Earth over the next number of years, caused by things like natural disasters, things like pestilence, and disease, food shortages. The list goes on, but we're in very trying times right now, and and I try to keep you guys ahead of some of the things that come at us because uh, the climate is changing in the world. There's no doubt about that. Uh, Global warming, global cooling, who knows for sure, but there are big changes in the climate, and these changes are reflected in things like these heat waves that we've seen, and things like derechos that we get now in the United States. It used to be called a squall line when I was growing up, when I was a kid, a group of thunderstorms that come in, and now they form into what's called a derecho, and it can have wind speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour, and they're increasing every year, intensity. We've got hurricanes that are going into new magnitudes unheard of before. Look at what Hurricane Ida just did. Of course, I cover the hurricanes on this channel, but I only cover the bad ones. So you guys are watching on my channel and you see a hurricane report. Probably won't see any more this year, but maybe next year. You see a hurricane report. Watch the hurricane that I put on my channel, because that's going to be the bad one. That's going to be the one that's going to do a ripping amount of damage, So if I put it on my channel, all these storms out there they don't have much potential and stuff. I don't bother with them, It's just going to mostly blow over and not do too much. But when I see one out there that shows a lot of potential, then I put it on my channel. Not that I like to put them on my channel, because that means it's going to be a baddie, Anyway, guys, when I was a little kid, I used to be very interested in hurricanes, and I still am. I'm still kind of fascinated. Not like I was when I was a kid. I was right into hurricanes. I had a big tracking chart on my wall. I was only like about 7 years old, or maybe 10 years old. And I had a big tracking chart on my wall. And I used to put stick pins in, and I had these little different colored stick pins. Like for category 1, it'd be like a little yellow stick pin. And then when it turned to a category 2, I'd change it to orange. It turned to a category 3, I'd change it into red, I used to follow them, and I learned about them, studied about them in the books, how they function and everything, but I've tracked them all my life. I've tracked hurricanes, and anyway, listen, guys, thank you for tuning into my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next episode. Bye bye.